obedience on the lips, Babylon in the heart, reckless living, corporate religion, and the collapse of Zion consciousness in modern covenant society, the hidden servant, Isaiah, the remnant, and the hidden pattern behind Zion's redemption, written by Mark Tyson, Trent, Lichtenwalter. What does it mean when a people publicly proclaim obedience to God, while privately conforming themselves to the spirit of Babylon? What happens when covenant language remains, but covenant behavior disappears? What happens when people loudly defend law and order, yet casually violate the laws they personally dislike every single day? What happens when sacred offerings given in the name of God are absorbed into the financial bloodstream of the very world system Scripture repeatedly commands the saints to flee from? These are uncomfortable questions. But Scripture repeatedly warns that one of the great signs of spiritual decline among covenant people is not merely open wickedness. It is hypocrisy. It is the appearance of righteousness without the substance of it. It is honoring God with the lips, while the heart becomes fully integrated into the spirit of the world. The problem is not merely individual sin. The deeper problem is the normalization of contradiction. Modern religious culture often speaks endlessly about sustaining the laws of the land. Articles of faith are quoted. Loyalty language is repeated. Respectability is elevated almost to a sacrament. Yet the same people who speak constantly about obedience frequently drive recklessly, speed habitually, tailgate aggressively, violate traffic laws casually, and justify it simply because everyone else does it. That may appear small on the surface, but spiritually, it reveals something much larger. Scripture teaches that Zion people are supposed to be governed by internal righteousness, not social conformity. The excuse "everyone else does it" has never once been accepted by God as justification for disobedience. B. The broad road has always been crowded. The narrow path has always been lonely. Christ himself declared, "Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way, that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat." C. Yet modern society, including religious society, has normalized the exact opposite mentality. If the majority does something, it becomes acceptable. If culture approves of something, conscience becomes silent. If enough people violate the law together, people stop even recognizing rebellion as rebellion. This same contradiction appears not only in daily conduct, but increasingly within institutional religion itself. When sacred things finance Babylon, one of the most sobering teachings associated with early Restoration theology is the repeated warning against building up Babylon through economic participation and worldly accumulation. D. Joseph Smith declared, God had often sealed up the heavens because of covetousness in the church. Said he, how many will it take to save them? We want the riches of eternity, and will not spare the earthly things. E. The issue was never merely wealth itself. The issue was attachment to Babylon systems. The issue was trusting financial structures more than God. The issue was gathering wealth while failing to establish Zion. And yet modern religious institutions increasingly function almost indistinguishably from massive corporate financial entities. Sacred tithes and offerings, funds donated by ordinary believers sacrificing in faith, are often invested into the same global economic system Scripture repeatedly identifies with Babylon: multinational banking structures, defense contractors, pharmaceutical corporations, investment portfolios, real estate empires, hedge funds, and massive market-based wealth accumulation systems. The contradiction becomes staggering when compared directly against Scripture. The Book of Mormon repeatedly warns that the latter-day Gentiles would become lifted up in the pride of their hearts above all nations, and become full of all manner of lyings, and of deceits, and of mischiefs. F. The Doctrine and Covenants commands, Go ye out from Babylon. Be ye clean that bear the vessels of the Lord. G. The Book of Revelation gives the same warning, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. H. Yet what does it mean to come out of Babylon if covenant institutions themselves become financially intertwined with Babylon's systems? Can a people truly claim separation from Babylon while simultaneously profiting from Babylon's machinery? Can Zion be built through the investment strategies of the world? These are not attacks against individuals trying to survive economically. Nearly everyone is trapped to some degree inside Babylon's systems. The deeper question is whether the people of God are attempting to escape Babylon spiritually, or mastering the art of becoming comfortable inside it. The forgotten law of consecration. Perhaps one of the clearest signs of this contradiction is the near total disappearance of serious discussion surrounding the law of consecration and the united order. Modern religious culture often speaks of tithing constantly while rarely speaking of consecration at all. But Scripture does not present consecration as optional symbolism. It presents it as the economic foundation of Zion. The Doctrine and Covenants declares, "It is not given that one man should possess that which is above another, wherefore the world liveth in sin." The Book of Moses describes Zion with unmistakable clarity, "And the Lord called his people Zion, because they were of one heart and one mind, and dwelt in righteousness, and there was no poor among them." Not fewer poor. No poor. That is not merely charity. That is an entirely different economic consciousness. Brigham Young taught, "My greatest fear for this people is that they will get rich in this country, forget God and his people, wax fat, and kick themselves out of the church." That warning now sounds almost prophetic. Because modern covenant culture increasingly mirrors the exact pattern Scripture warns about: wealth accumulation without consecration, prosperity without equality, religious branding without Zion economics, and institutional expansion without the actual establishment of a covenant society where there are no poor among them. The early saints at least attempted forms of consecration. Modern religious society often treats the entire concept as impractical idealism, while simultaneously celebrating massive institutional financial growth as evidence of divine favor. But Scripture never teaches that financial accumulation is proof of righteousness. Babylon is wealthy too. Justice without mercy.
Mostly clear for 2 miles.
Justice without mercy and law without truth. The contradictions become even darker when legal systems begin punishing victims while empowering perpetrators. Isaiah warned, "Woe unto them that call evil good, and good evil." Moroni warned that in the latter days societies would become filled with secret combinations seeking power, gain, and control. When justice systems become corrupted, when truth becomes secondary to political convenience, and when prosecutors target the vulnerable while protecting institutional interests, society enters spiritually dangerous territory. Law itself becomes detached from righteousness. And once that separation happens, civilization begins collapsing from within even while maintaining outward appearances of order. Scripture repeatedly shows that judgment begins first with covenant people, not the heathen nations. Why? Because greater light brings greater accountability. The real danger becoming spiritually comfortable in Babylon. The greatest danger facing modern religious people may not be atheism. It may not even be open wickedness. The greatest danger may be learning how to feel spiritually safe while fully integrated into Babylon's mindset. Babylon is not merely a city. Babylon is a consciousness. It is the belief that wealth equals blessing. It is the belief that corporate power equals divine approval. It is the belief that external respectability matters more than inward holiness. It is the belief that systems matter more than revelation. It is the belief that economic security matters more than truth. And once covenant people begin measuring success through Babylon's standards, Zion slowly disappears while everyone continues using Zion language. That is the terrifying part. The vocabulary remains. The structures remain. The branding remains. But the spirit changes. And Scripture repeatedly warns that this condition eventually ripens societies for judgment. The question is no longer whether Scripture warned about these things. The question is whether modern covenant people can still recognize Babylon when they are financially, culturally, socially, and psychologically dependent upon it. Because eventually every generation must decide, do we truly want Zion? Or do we merely want a slightly moralized version of Babylon? Footnote reference section. Isaiah 29:13. This people draw near me with their mouth, and with their lips do honor me, but have removed their heart far from me. Why this quote is used. This scripture establishes the central thesis of the article. Outward religious language does not necessarily reflect inward covenant loyalty. Isaiah directly condemns performative religion divorced from genuine transformation. B. Exodus 23:2. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil. Why this quote is used. This passage directly confronts the modern justification that social normalization excuses disobedience. Scripture rejects majority behavior as a moral standard. C. Holy Bible Matthew 7:13-14. Full quote. Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way, that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Why this quote is used. Christ warns that truth and righteousness are rarely found in majority culture. The article uses this to contrast covenant obedience against modern conformity. D. Doctrine and Covenants 1:16. Full quote. They seek not the Lord to establish his righteousness, but every man walketh in his own way, and after the image of his own God. Why this quote is used. This verse supports the article's argument that societies frequently create spiritual systems shaped around worldly priorities rather than God's order. E. Joseph Smith, Jr., History of the Church, Volume 5, p. 517. Full quote. God had often sealed up the heavens because of covetousness in the church. Why this quote is used. This statement demonstrates that early Restoration leadership viewed materialism and covetousness as spiritually destructive to revelation and covenant standing. F. Book of Mormon 3 Nephi 16:10. Full quote. At that day when the Gentiles shall sin against my gospel, and shall be lifted up in the pride of their hearts above all nations. Why this quote is used. This prophecy is used to frame latter-day covenant societies potentially falling into pride, materialism, and spiritual corruption. G. Doctrine and Covenants 133:5. Full quote. Go ye out from Babylon. Be ye clean that bear the vessels of the Lord. Why this quote is used. This command forms one of the article's central themes. Separation from Babylon is not symbolic rhetoric alone but an actual covenant expectation. H. Book of Revelation, Revelation 18:4. Full quote. Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins. Why this quote is used. This passage establishes the theological warning that participation in Babylon eventually results in shared judgment. I. Doctrine and Covenants 42:30-39. Why this citation is used. These sections contain foundational revelations regarding consecration, stewardship, equality, and care for the poor within Zion society. J. Doctrine and Covenants 49:20. Full quote. It is not given that one man should possess that which is above another, wherefore the world liveth in sin. Why this quote is used. This scripture directly critiques extreme inequality and forms one of the article's strongest textual arguments regarding Zion economics. K. Pearl of Great Price, Moses 7:18. Full quote. And the Lord called his people Zion, because they were of one heart and one mind, and dwelt in righteousness, and there was no poor among them. Why this quote is used. This verse provides the clearest scriptural definition of Zion society and contrasts sharply against modern economic disparity. L. Brigham Young, Journal of Discourses, Volume 19, p. 47. Full quote. My greatest fear for this people is that they will get rich in this country, forget God and his people, wax fat, and kick themselves out of the church. Why this quote is used. This quote is used to show that even early LDS leadership feared prosperity would spiritually corrupt covenant people. M. Holy Bible Isaiah 5:20. Full quote, "Woe unto them that call evil good, and good evil." Why this quote is used. Isaiah's warning supports the article's criticism of moral inversion within legal, political, and institutional systems. N. Book of Mormon Ether 8:23. Full quote, "Suffer not that these murderous combinations shall get above you." Why this quote is used. Moroni warns covenant societies against systems of hidden power, corruption, and control that eventually dominate nations. O. Holy Bible 1 Peter 4:17. Full quote, "For the time has come that judgment must begin at the house of God." Why this quote is used. This scripture reinforces the article's argument that covenant people bear greater responsibility because of greater spiritual light. P. Doctrine and Covenants 112, 24-26. Why this citation is used. These verses warn of judgment beginning among the Lord's covenant people when they reject correction and become spiritually hardened.